Hi friends, are you a Bloodhound main, or considering becoming a Bloodhound main? Maybe you just want to get better at playing with Bloodhound. This guide should help you learn how to play Bloodhound in Apex Legends Season 8, and master all of the skills you need to win more games with Bloodhound. Before I start, can I just remind you to click the big red subscribe button down below if you like the video. I really appreciate the support. Okay, so let's look at Bloodhound's abilities, and I'll give you some tips on how to use Bloodhound in Apex Legends. Now, Bloodhound's actually had a lot of buffs since Season 1. In fact, Bloodhound's probably up there with the legends that have had the most buffs in the history of the game. But with these buffs, Bloodhound has turned into a really great and versatile legend that is great for pubs, ranked, and even competitive play. In fact, if you're playing solo and struggling to game RP and ranked, try out Bloodhound. Just make sure you scan enemies before you go into any fight, and those assists you get really will help you climb ranked a lot faster. In terms of this guide, let's start with Bloodhound's passive, and I'll give you some tips on how to use it. So Bloodhound actually has two passives. The first is a class passive that all recon legends have, the ability to scan survey beacons on the maps. And it's actually a really useful ability. It used to be exclusive to Pathfinder, but now every recon legend can do it. By scanning these beacons, you'll get to reveal the next ring location, with a green circle on the map. It's actually really useful in ranked play, and when I play with the Soggy squad, we always try and scan beacons where possible. It's the best way to decide how and where to rotate, and a lot of the time, if we see there's a beacon in the zone, we'll plan our rotation to end up in that location where the beacon is, just so we can scan it. And we have won a lot of ranked games just because we knew where the final ring would be. So that's what the power of being able to scan beacons can give you as a passive with Bloodhound. I should add, if you're new to the game and you don't know, you can only scan once per ring, so try and get the scan in nice and early for the ring, just in case you need to move because other teams are pushing you. Also, it does take 7 seconds to scan the beacon, so make sure you're in the clear and there's no one that's got a headshot on you while you're scanning, otherwise you will be vulnerable for those seconds. You don't want to put your team at risk by getting downed while scanning a beacon, so keep that in mind. Now, Bloodhound's second passive is the tracker ability, where you can see clues left behind by enemies. One thing to note is that the clues last for 90 seconds, and you can actually see how long ago the clue was left behind. Here is a list of all the different types of clues you can see. Now, you can see the details of each clue as you look at them, so don't worry, you don't need to memorize this list, but it is useful to give you an idea of how many different clues that are available in the game. You should use these clues to understand where the enemies have moved, but also what state the enemy's in, and even which legends are in the enemy teams. For example, one of the clues might say Nox gas was used here, so that means you know there is a caustic in the team you're pushing, and this can then help you decide how to fight the squads you're chasing. For example, if there is a caustic and they're camped in a building, you know because it says there was a Nox gas used that there is a caustic in that building and you might not want to push that building, and that means you can then reposition and you know you need to draw them out of the building, so maybe you throw some grenades in the building. So it allows you to decide how you fight squads by understanding a little bit of detail about who's in the enemy team, and even if they've taken damage, how many squads were fighting. All of this information you should really use to help you win battles. And a top tip here is to look out for the colour of the clues. If it's red, it means the tracks are fresh and the enemies are probably quite close behind or in front of you. But if there's a grey track, then it actually means the enemy hasn't been there for a while, and it probably means they aren't very close, which means potentially you can push through a lot quicker. Also, another tip is to ping the tracks for your friends and your teammates. So this one's more useful if you're playing with randoms and you can't talk to them directly. You can kind of know what you're looking for and what you've found, and that can sometimes encourage your random teammates to keep up with you as you track the enemy team. Now we can look at Bloodhound's tactical and give some tips on how best to use Eye of the Allfather. So this tactical ability essentially lets you scan an area to see if they're enemies, and it also shows it to your teammates as well, which is super useful. In terms of the scan, it spans 125 degrees in the direction you're facing, kind of like in a cone shape, and it reaches a maximum distance of 75 meters, which is pretty far, so you can get some good distance and good information from a good distance away. It also reveals all enemies, traps, clues, and loot ticks, and will even tell you how many hostiles are in the area, so that will help you know if there's more than one squad around you. Do be careful of mirages though, because it does pick up each decoy as someone that's been detected, so do make sure you're actually looking at the scan signatures that you see to see is it one squad or is it multiple squads. And also, if you didn't know, it will tell you an exact number up to 10 hostiles, but actually when you get past 10 hostiles in an area, it will just say 10 plus. Another thing to note is that the time to activate is 1.8 seconds, but when you're using your ultimate, it's actually reduced to 0.9 seconds, and it's got a faster cooldown time of 9 seconds. But I'll mention a little bit more about that when we get into the ultimate discussion. Oh, one other thing, enemies will get a sonar warning detected on their hubs, so they will know when you've used your tactical and they've been detected. So just be aware of this. And basically all of this means you should use your scan strategically before you start a fight. For example, if you're pushing an enemy team, wait till you're in position to attack before you scan. And also, I would suggest maybe not scanning mid-fight. If you're being shot at and you do a scan, that animation time, especially if you're not in your ultimate, can really mean you do take a lot of damage. A top tip here for ranked, like I mentioned before, if you're climbing solo, or to be honest, even playing with a team, if you're constantly scanning with Bloodhound, particularly before you start a fight, this will give you assists, and with assists, you get as many points as you do for kills. So it's a really great way to level up in ranked and gain more RP a lot quicker just by scanning. And I actually call Bloodhound the king of assists, and I've had a few games recently in ranked where I've had 10 assists, which is amazing and really helps me max out those kill and assist points to rank up a lot quicker. Another top tip is to use the scan to pre-fire. This is mainly for weapons like the Devotion or the Havoc, where there is a bit of a wind-up time, because basically your scan tells you where the enemy team are, so you can start behind cover, do a scan, and then start firing as you move out of cover, because you know exactly where the enemy team is. And one more top tip for the tactical is that you can also use the scan defensively. Now this works in a few scenarios. For example, if there is a team close or pushing you, the scan kind of acts like a deterrent to scare them off. So if you can hear footsteps near you, do a scan and it might buy you some more time. It doesn't always work, but it can be useful in ranked. It's also a great way to check if anyone is in the buildings that you're planning to camp or rotate to. So for example, if you move into a new area, you're not sure if there are teams there. Hit your scan, and that's a good way to see and assess if that's a good place for you to camp or rotate to. And finally, we have Bloodhound's Ultimate. Now Bloodhound's Ultimate is one of the best ultimates in the game. It's called Beast of the Hunt, and basically everything turns black and white, and enemies are highlighted in red. Enemy footprints are also highlighted, by the way, in red, and certain other things will retain colour, including the edge of the ring, grenade explosions, and some enemy abilities. Teammates are highlighted in blue as well, by the way. Overall, this ultimate lasts 35 seconds, and it even remains active when you're downed. Now the cool thing with this ultimate is, when you down an enemy, it extends the time of your ultimate. This varies between 5 and 15 seconds, depending how close to the end of your ultimate you are. But if you do get near to the end, you can increase the time by as much as 15 seconds, which is a lot of time for the ultimate. You also get a 30% speed increase by using your ultimate, which means you can move a lot faster, and you can definitely do some amazing strafing, which makes you really hard to hit. My first top tip for the ultimate is actually to try and combine Bloodhound's ultimate with a Bangalore smoke or caustic gas. So a great way to do it is call out to your teammate to fire a smoke over your enemies when you crack your ultimate. And this is so effective, you can see through the smoke, and your enemies will be highlighted in red. But if the enemies don't have someone like a Bloodhound, they won't be able to see through the smoke. Essentially, it's a really great and easy way to pick up some easy fights, easy kills, and to push teams very quickly. Another top tip is actually the opposite of this. You can use Bloodhound's ultimate at range. You see, because enemies are highlighted in red, it makes it easier to see them from distance. So if you've got a sniper, or a G7 scout, or the new 30-30 repeater, you can actually crack Bloodhound's ultimate at distance and have a better view of where the enemies are. This might actually help you hit more shots at range. So it's a good another way to use Bloodhound's ultimate that I don't think a lot of people try out, but it's definitely worth giving it a go. Another top tip, as I mentioned before, is that the cooldown time and animation time for the tactical is reduced when you're in the ultimate mode. So all I would say as the top tip is just keep scanning as much as you can. Because that cooldown is reduced while you're in the ultimate mode, you want to keep doing it as much as you can, because when it ends, it goes back to the normal 25 seconds. And my final tip for using Bloodhound's ultimate is that it can be used offensively and defensively. In terms of using it offensively, because of the speed boost, because you can see tracks more clearly, you can use it to chase down enemies that are running away. Of course, this is perfect if you've just downed a team but there's a solo left that's trying to flee. You can chase them down really quickly as Bloodhound. And I would say Bloodhound is one of the few legends that can actually keep up with legends like Octane, who are very good at getting away from fights very quickly. But I would also say you can use the ultimate defensively. Sometimes you're in situations where you're stuck behind cover, and I've had this many times before. My team is perhaps on a different side, or they've already left the scene, and I'm a little bit far behind. And if you've got a team either pushing you, or shooting at you behind cover, and you need to get away, you can activate the ultimate to help get away a lot quicker. So essentially, it's a good way to get out of tricky situations. So you don't always have to use it offensively. And I feel like this is something people don't do enough of in Apex. You see, sometimes it's best just to leave a fight and reposition, especially in ranked. Now, with all of this, I would just say one thing to be aware of is that both Bloodhound's tactical and ultimate are very loud when activated, and the activation itself is very loud, so people will hear it if you're nearby, but particularly for the ultimate, when you're in beast mode and you've got it active, it is still very loud throughout the use of the ultimate. So if you're trying to get away, you really need to wait for the beast mode to finish before you try and hide somewhere, otherwise you will be found very easily. It's just too loud. And that's it for my guide on how to play Bloodhound in Apex Legends Season 8. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you start winning more games with Bloodhound in Apex Legends Season 8. Please don't forget to hit the big red subscribe button, come join our community of friends. For now though, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.